The Drop Back with Sam Lewis, Matt Burns-Peak and Joe Costanzo.
And we're back with an extended hiatus. It's back with another episode of the Drop Back podcast. I'm Sam Lewis and I'm joined as ever down the line by Joe Costanzo.
Hi Slew, been a long time. How are we doing?
We're doing well. Yourself?
I'm keeping well. I'm a bit balder now, as are you.
Considerably bolder.
Yeah.
You are the most bald. Let's not leave him waiting too long. You just heard his voice. It's Matt Burns-Peak.
Howdly doodly, boys.
Howdly doodly indeed.
Indeed.
All right. It's been quite a hiatus from us and we do apologise for that. Should we go straight into it, boys?
I think we should, yeah.
Alright, so we all need a little bit of happiness right now. So let's start with the best free agent signings you saw this off-season, the steals, the really nitty-gritty stuff that you like to see. Matt, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, give me 1 second while my note loads. There we go. Fantastic. Yeah, I actually thought there were quite a few deals that I was really impressed with this free agency. I know the tendency seems to be about free agency starts and teams sort of panic and sell the farm to players, and then they never seem to quite work out. And maybe I'm just speaking from personal experience with the Dolphins and their plethora of free agent mistakes in the past. But there were a few moves that I really liked, and I think one of the main ones that I really liked was Javon Hargrave to the Eagles. I thought that was a fantastic deal, $39 million over 3 years for a stud that instantly improves that defensive line. And as well as that, I really liked the Falcons capitalising on the Rams mess and picking up Todd Gurley on a 1 year $6 million deal. I think it's a win-win for everyone involved.
Would you say it's a mess though?
I feel the way the Rams handled the Gurley situation was a mess, 100%. If they had come to their conclusion earlier, they might have been able to, trade him or do something
Get
a bit
a
different with him.
late round pick for him, yeah.
Exactly. They left it to that point where it became too late, and then they had to cut ties with a player who was the face of their franchise not so long ago.
Yeah, it's crazy to think like a few years ago he was the highest paid running back in the league officially, and now he's been cut. It doesn't really do running backs any justice, to be honest. I'm quite sad about it. But
I just think it was really rash. I think, for the Falcons, it's fantastic. They get Gurley on a very cheap $6 million 1 year deal. If the knee turns out to be okay and he can recapture that electric form, then fantastic. He's in their lap and they can use him. If it turns out that the knee is bad and they can't get a lot out of him, then they've really lost very little in the grand scheme of things, and they can get rid of him next year. I think as well that the strange thing for me was how much dead cap space the Rams absorbed just to get rid of Gurley, when I almost think it would have made sense to just keep him around and give him an extra year to see where you're at if you're going to end up paying him that much anyway in dead cap.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The other one you mentioned, the Javon Hargrave one, not only is it a good signing for a good player on a decent contract, but when you add him to the line that they've already got there with Fletcher Cox and Malik Jackson, that's a nasty little defensive line, throwing back to a couple of years ago when they were actually able to get pressure on the quarterback. Hopefully they'll be able to regain that sort of form there.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what it is sometimes with free agency. It's like a player can look like a good signing, but then when you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, it's like, does it really fit in with the rest of the team? And is it actually a good signing long term? And I think that's where a lot of the time is like, it sounded a really good player then, but then you look at the contract and who he has to go play with. It's like, what's the point of that one?
Yeah, exactly. I really liked, just not to try and steal them, but I thought Chris Harris was a great pickup by the Chargers as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Take it away, Joey.
No, I think the Chargers, just their defensive line in defensive backs in general are just pretty amazing elite, right now. Yeah. And that whole AFC West has always been kind of known for, in some sense, good defensive back play, especially from the Chargers and the Broncos. I think both the Chargers and the Broncos have gotten better this season, in the off-season. And, I mean, it's hard to say when a player goes to the Chargers because they have a tendency to just break everything and not play. But
self-destruct.
But I love Chris Harris Jr. I think he's one of the most talented nickel cornerbacks in the league. And I think they've got a pretty good deal as well. Like for Chris Harris Jr.'s $10 mil a year. That's less than Desmond Trufant, who is a less good player in my opinion.
I mean, in guaranteed money, it's less than that. It's 17 mil guaranteed over 2 years. So I mean, like I said, Joe, I think that's a fantastic price.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think the favourite one I saw was one. Sorry to jump over your point. You got another one there, Joe.
No. Go ahead.
Well, it was one that we all mentioned that was a huge position of need, perhaps like the only position of need really for this team was Emmanuel Sanders going to the Saints to be their number 2 receiver. 2 years, 16 mil, 8 mil a year. Really not a huge price to pay for someone that's still producing. Yes, he's aged 33, but he hasn't really shown any signs of slowing down. And as a compliment to Michael Thomas, it gives him a really good 1-2 punch in the air.
Yeah, I thought on that Saints team, the one thing that, like you said, was clearly missing. They had such by no doubt last year, Michael Thomas was the best receiver in the league. But who was behind him? Like, they'd been playing around with Ted Ginn for a while, like over the years. He's shown some signs, and it's just a bunch of basically number 4 receivers on that team. And I think Emmanuel Sanders proved his worth last year playing for the 49ers, and he emerged as a primary receiver. And now to have him on as a secondary receiver on a team with the, by all means, best receiver in the league. I'm sorry if you can hear a Hoover going on, but screw it, I'll continue.
Hoovers don't slow him down.
Yeah, Hoovers ain't got shit on me. I'll tell you that. No, but I honestly think Emmanuel Sanders...
Not as good as blowing either.
Yeah, a Spitfire. Emmanuel Sanders, great pickup. I can see him easily getting 1,000 yards, and none of the other receivers. I remember there was a crazy stat just before we broke up about all the other receivers other than Michael Thomas on the Saints. I don't even think they eclipsed his total yardage at all. No, like any of the other receivers put together on that Saints team last year. So I think that's going to change this year for sure.
Yeah. The only thing that I worry about with Emmanuel Sanders is, as you mentioned, Slew, he is the wrong side of 30 for a wide receiver. It's will he be able to stay healthy for this full season? We know how wide receivers can be absolutely flying, and then an injury curtails it, and they can never really quite recapture that form. And obviously, the risk increases the older they get. So if they can keep Sanders healthy, I think it's a fantastic deal. It will depend on whether he lasts the full slate, though.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a fair comment. I would point to the fact he played 17 regular season games last year, and then all the playoff games as well on the way to the Super Bowl, and looked as quick as he has done. He hasn't really seemed to lose a step yet, and like you said, though, there is that chance that it just happens one day rather than it be a slow build into that.
Yeah.
Right. Is there anyone you think was? Oh, Joe, you got another good one?
I've got another. Well, there's quite a few good ones really to get through, but I mean, just one I wanted to raise was Austin Hooper to the Browns. 4 years. I mean, this isn't guaranteed money, but 44 million, so 11 million a year, makes him the highest paid tight end in the league. He's sitting now in front of Njoku, who by all means is a starting quality tight end in the league. But you could see a lot of twin tight end sets now in Cleveland. Obviously, I think he's a top 3 target on that team. Just fits right in there, and obviously he was the most productive. Obviously, with the Falcons being the Falcons, he wasn't necessarily shown, but he was doing bits for my fantasy team until I got injured at the end of the year. And now I think the Browns have really upgraded on offense around the board. I mean, they also picked up Jack Conklin, who I thought was the 3rd best player in Tennessee last year.
Yeah, outstanding.
No, but you're absolutely right about that 2 tight end sets, especially when you look at them bringing in Kevin Stefanski to be their head coach now, and what he did in Minnesota last year, again with 2 tight end sets, using the run play action off that, and with Jack Conklin as well, it does line it up to more of what should be able to help Baker Mayfield become a competent quarterback in the league.
Competent quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes a ton of sense personnel-wise. I think it gives Baker Mayfield that big target that he's going to struggle to miss, because Austin Hooper is absolutely massive, and Baker Mayfield, as we saw last season, was pretty scattershot with his passing, so that's a big plus. I just don't really like the price, and it doesn't really sit right with me knowing that Austin Hooper is the highest paid tight end in the league.
I think they did overpay him, but it's they needed another big body that down the middle that Mayfield can hit.
Yeah, I get that. But the thing is, though, everything looks overpaid until they perform on the. If it works for their offense, is it overpaid?
And Austin Hooper last year was like the most productive tight end until he got injured at the end of the year. So he was honestly, I think he was leading on all the categories.
With how contracts work in the NFL, if you're above average, well, better than above average, a really good player, which Austin Hooper is, when your contract comes around, they're generally made the highest paid at their position, especially if they're still young. Yeah. So what's going to happen is the next one that comes along, which I don't know if Kittle's still got 2 years, but he'll probably get paid before that because the Niners will have to. He'll become the next highest, and then when Kelsey's contract, he'll become the highest, and it just works that way.
It's the same for any position, though. It's the same with Laramie Tunsil at tackle as well for the Texans. He's probably going to get reset the tackle market. He's not necessarily the best left tackle in the league, but he's just young enough and has enough talent that he's going to be paid that much anyway.
Yeah, Byron Jones just reset the cornerback market as well, so that does happen.
Oh, that leads me on to my worst pick. My worst signing.
Oh, you're gonna make me sad.
You've ruined you've taken over my segue for your segue. Better be a good one.
I'm sorry, but you mentioned it, so I actually had Byron Jones. I really like Byron Jones. I think he's one of the most versatile players in the league.
Good, leave it at that.
Is he worth being the highest paid cornerback in the league? I don't think so.
It's the same point Matt just made. Who would you say is the best paid cornerback in the league then? Who should be?
Well, he's just going to say Marlon Humphrey.
If Byron Jones is a top
Stephon
5
Gilmore.
corner, which you could argue he is, and he's coming up for his contract, then that's how he's going to get paid by one team. One team's got to make that payment.
No, I would say he's possibly the only reason I'd pay him this much, and I wouldn't pay him this much, but the only reason I would
so there is no reason
because of his versatility. Other than that, because you can match him up with effectively any position, tight end or wide receiver on the field. That's the reason that you could argue that he's worth getting paid that much, but he just hasn't really proven it enough to be the highest paid corner in the league. You know what I mean?
The thing with Byron Jones is, and it's all about fit, because Brian Flores wants to play so much man defense, and Byron Jones in man defense is fantastic. He doesn't get interceptions, but he is blanket coverage. And what the Dolphins, especially, well, one of the many things Dolphins lacked last season was in the secondary, especially. Javen Howard gets a lot of picks and makes a lot of turnovers, but in terms of his just being able to cover a guy and limit the amount of yards he gives up, Javen Howard is susceptible to the splash play.
Gets burnt deep. Is that what you're saying?
He's been burnt deep a couple of times. He's taken some ridiculous interceptions a couple of times. You got to take it. But the point is that Byron Jones is blanket coverage in man coverage, and that's what Byron Flores wants. He's one of the top man coverage corners in the league. I know you said he's versatile as well, but as a man-to-man corner, he is exceptional. Yes, it's a steep price, but if adding that piece means that Brian Flores can do what he needs to do on the defensive side of the ball and shore up those corners to create turnovers from the D-line and from elsewhere, then I think it will have a big impact. It's the same thing the same point as Slew was making with Austin Hooper.
Yeah, no. Trust me.
After your big defense of Byron Jones then being not overpaid, who would you put in that category then, Matt?
As being overpaid?
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, how about Robert Quinn being massively overpaid?
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
£70 million for 5 years. Robert Quinn, who has been
£70 million.
£70 million over 5 years for
Dollars.
Robert Quinn.
Pounds.
Well,
that's a lot. He's got a little bonus there, mate.
Dollary dues. But yeah, I mean, it's silly money for Robert Quinn, isn't it?
He's gonna be 30 when the season starts.
You just, for a player that old who's been that inconsistent as well over the last few seasons, we've yo-yoed between.
Has he done anything since he left the Rams?
I mean, he was not very good for the Dolphins for a while.
I didn't even know that. I had no idea he played for the Dolphins.
We had him for a little bit. It was not good, and then he had flashes elsewhere as well. But I just think it's so much money for a player you don't know is going to be consistently good and is a old player. As well as that, I thought,
and it's 30 million guaranteed.
Exactly, it's silly money.
Just while we're on Robert Quinn, before you do move on, I thought all the big moves that the Bears made this offseason were pretty poor.
Oh, Nick Foles.
Go further.
Nick Foles, a fourth round a 4th round picks. Why would you not pick up Cam Newton? Nick Foles also was injured last year. Has also been injured a few times in his career. If they're
That's a
both
really good
their
point.
best, I'd rather have Cam Newton than Nick Foles.
Yeah.
And the
100%.
other one is Jimmy Graham, 2 years, 16 million. If we're saying 11 million a year is a lot for Austin Hooper, what's 8 million a year for Jimmy Graham, who last season had 400 odd yards and 3 touchdowns with Aaron Rodgers?
He's just not the same Jimmy Graham that he was 4 or 5 years ago, and I think for me that's the biggest difference.
It seems like they were buying everyone from 4 or 5 years ago. Nick Foles 3 years ago, Robert Quinn 4 or 5 years ago, Jimmy Graham hasn't really done it since he left the Saints. Had a little bit of success occasionally in Seattle, but wasn't anywhere near that successful. If you're a Bears fan and those are the big 3 moves you make, how are you expected to be excited going into the new year?
Yeah, that's depressing stuff for a Bears fan, I think.
Someone's been playing a lot of like Madden 16. I'm just like, they're just 2 seasons behind.
Yeah.
Oh, this Robert Quinn guy's good. Let's sign him.
Oh dear. Yeah, Joe, who did you have as the overpays?
The overpays.
Yeah, Byron Jones.
I had Byron Jones, mate.
Oh yeah, of course you did.
Really.
Put you into a blind rage. Is it angered you that much?
I didn't know if you
from memory.
I just wiped it from my memory. It was too traumatic. No, I wondered if you had any more, because speaking of corners, I thought that James Bradbury to the Giants for £45 million, 32 of which is guaranteed for 3 years.
Stop saying pounds.
Not pounds, dollars. I'm sorry.
Dollary dues.
It's still a lot of money, is my point. But yeah, I thought that was bizarre. I don't think Bradbury's ever been that guy at corner for the Panthers. He's looked okay at times. I don't think he's ever looked exceptional. And when you compare that to the contract that Slay got from the Eagles, Bradbury's on more guaranteed money over the same period of time, and I just think that's bonkers to me.
He's a younger player, though. Is the argument you can make if you're the Giants front office. He's a younger player than Darius Slay. Darius Slay coming off an injury, a little bit of a down year. Yeah, I'm thrilled for that signing as an Eagles fan. I'm just thinking what their argument would be for that one.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I don't sound convinced either, and you two certainly don't.
I'm just going to that one.
Free agents aren't the only way to get new players in the off-season. Joe, favourite trade of the off-season?
It's not?
It's not. Favourite trade,
What?
Joe?
Oh, my favourite trade. Well, there's a difference between my favourite trade and the ones I wanted to.
The ones that are
Obviously,
good.
I'm gonna get my favourite one out of the way first. It's Calais Campbell for a 5th round pick. Calais, a perennial Pro Bowler, made the Pro Bowl last year, 5-time Pro Bowler in fact. A pass rusher from the inside tackle / end position at a 3-4 lineup that we
He's also just
love
a
to
huge
run.
man, just an absolute.
He's a huge boy, and obviously
If you go for arguments.
losing my boy Michael Pierce to the Vikings was very sad, but we found a really good replacement, and I'm very happy about that, and the value we got him in with just a 5th round pick being exchanged. And I think there might have been a later pick that the Jags even gave us lot for the next year. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, that is by far my most favourite, and I think we could all agree it's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal.
It's good value.
For sure.
I can understand it. I mean,
Here.
can I understand it from the Jags' point of view?
No, that's what I was thinking.
yeah.
What are the Jags thinking?
I think they've locked
Doesn't make sense because they're going to end up with without Yannick Ngakoue as well.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
he doesn't want to sign that free agency tender. Not free agency tender. Franchise tag.
franchise
tender,
tag.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank. Remember that time we all went to Wembley and I watched the Ravens get trounced like 47-7 by the Jaguars, and that year they were good. The last year they were good, and everyone was saying Saxonville, blah blah blah, blah this, blah that. At the end of the day, who wins now, Jags? Who wins now? I want you to look into my eyes and hear my voice.
The whole of Jacksonville.
Well, they won. They still won the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they do. But who won the war, Slew?
It's not a war. It's not
It is a
between
war.
you and
I don't think
Jacksonville.
they realised they were at war with you, Joe. To be honest,
Oh, Jesus Christ!
it seems like a very personal vendetta.
This isn't. You
Do you want us
just
to
don't
just agree with
understand.
you? Joe,
just
you
please
won the war.
agree.
Don't worry, mate.
Thank
You won the war.
Thank you.
Well done, Joe. Good warring.
Cool. Well, they've lost Ramsey and Calais now, and like you said,
And
they're going to
Fourier.
lose. they've lost Boye and they're going to lose Ngagwe. So at the end of the day, like, it went from Saxonville to I don't even know what the fuck.
Waxonville. Waxonville.
Whack.
Jacksonville.
Your shit's whack.
Nice.
But yeah, that was by far my favourite. But in terms of one I did want to bring up, sorry to kind of hog it here, but what did you guys think of Kyle Allen to the Redskins?
I thought it was nothing.
Waste of a 5th round pick.
I thought it was vanilla from everyone involved and boring.
But I've got an interesting theory, and it relates to the article that will soon be live on the dropback.com.
Plug.
So, with Kyle Allen moving to the Redskins, as we all know, Cam Newton is out. Anyone who happened to watch the XFL before it was so rudely interrupted by natural disasters would see the MVP of the league, PJ Walker, going to none other than the Panthers, who offered him a higher rate than any of the other teams in the league. He actually offered him a few mil. So alongside Teddy Bridgewater going to Carolina, I think PJ Walker returning to Matt Rule, who, by the way, coached him in college for Temple.
Nice.
That is a potential for PJ Walker to be starting next year. At the end of the day, you've got one side.
Claim.
I'm saying this. Imagine, right, we get about like half of the way through the season. Teddy Bridgewater is sort of plummeting along, just sort of mediocre quarterback, game manager. They've lost a few close games and whatever. PJ Walker steps in, bang, dynamite. When I saw him play in the XFL, he had he was like 15 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He averaged like 300 yards a game, over like 65% completion percentage, and he's just been signed.
Injury.
What?
I think barring injury, the only way. I think there's more chance he's not on the roster than he starts a game over Teddy Bridgewater by the end of the year.
I think he'll be on the roster. To be honest, mate. I think
Sandwich
he's probably
bet,
more talented. Yeah, I'll good point. Sandwich
bet on what? That he won't start a game?
He'll be on the roster by the start of the season.
I didn't say that. I said there's more chance he won't be on the roster than he will start a game.
Okay,
right.
So how can we make a sandwich bet out of this?
What about...
What I'm saying is it's that unlikely that he will start a game this year.
Do you think they'll win the number 2 job, Slew?
Well, it depends who else they bring in. Probably. Maybe.
They
got no one else at the moment.
I could see them drafting a QB in the mid-rounds potentially as well. I'm trying to think how we can put this into a
Will Greer in the 3rd.
Well, he's PJ's only Philip, as he was known in university, but he's only 24.
We'll think of that as a sandwich bet for next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a jumbled mess right now.
Yeah, no, but that was another sort of interesting caveat I would like to just raise everyone's awareness of now, just so when it happens,
thank you very much.
Joe can be showered in sandwiches.
We can all be showered in sandwiches. Is that like your biggest wet dream, Joe?
Oh yeah, of course.
Nice.
Send the sandwiches.
Send the sandwiches. My favourite trade, it's a weird one because my favourite trade from a very evil perspective was the whole DeAndre Hopkins shit show because I love seeing the Texans getting absolutely shafted. However, I thought I'd go with a nice trade where everyone sort of wins, and I really liked the DeForest Buckner to the Colts trade. I thought fills a fantastic need for the Colts.
It's great value for San Fran, who can instantly use that pick in this draft class to go and get one of the best receivers, a CeeDee Lamb or a Ruggs or a Judy, to have an instant impact. And on the other end, for the Colts, it fills a huge need in the middle of their defense as well. So it's a fantastic move.
Yeah, and not only is it a good move this year for the 49ers, getting a first-round pick for someone that was out of contract at the end of the 2020 season is a huge win for them.
Yeah,
no, that's what I was thinking, because he didn't have much left on his contract. He probably wasn't going to re-sign anyway, so they just shafted him off for a cheeky first rounder.
Exactly.
I don't know if it works for the Colts. Then does the price really matter if it does work out?
Yeah, exactly. And you got to think, looking at the draft, and the Colts' biggest need would probably be a D tackle potentially, and if they didn't like the talent that they thought they'd be able to get at that point in the first round for that need anyway, then why not go and get DeForest Buckner, who's a proven talent and instantly can go straight into the starting lineup.
Yeah, absolutely, I'd agree with that.
You're not wrong.
If anything, it makes too much sense for everyone.
But then he might end up like Jadeveon Clowney and then just kind of wavering about the next year. You get what I mean? Like he's probably not. He might not sign for the Colts, and then you've just spent a first rounder on someone who's played for you for 1 year.
I'm fairly certain they've reworked the contract with him and they've already tied him down. If I'm correct, I don't know if it's been officially confirmed, but I thought that was sort of part of the.
Wait, are you confirming it now? Have you beaten Greg?
Yeah, I'm watching it, mate. I'm watching the whole situation.
If you're willing it into existence.
Yeah. I really hope it doesn't become official between this being recorded and released, so you can break the news. That would be great.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Can you imagine?
Can we just send a highlight of that to everywhere and say we called it?
Send it to Rappaport.
Yes, absolutely. But also, with what the Colts are doing, it does seem like they're going all in kind of on this year as well, signing Phil Rivers to that $25 million 1 year contract.
Yeah,
if they do manage to go all the way, if they believe that they're those couple of pieces away, then it's absolutely worth it if they get rid of the first rounder for that.
Yeah, true.
I just don't know if there's much of a difference between a Philip Rivers and a Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, I was thinking this as well.
Oh, I disagree. I think Philip Rivers is a much better quarterback than just...
Yeah, in his legacy-wise, he is, but now...
I think recently he's been pants.
Last
season he was pants.
His line was terrible, though. His line was absolute dog shit.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Chargers line isn't bad anymore.
Yeah, I know, but
I think the Chargers arguably had the best free agency.
Yeah, I mean
I could get involved with that.
Didn't they shift DJ Fluker for like a second or something?
I don't know what the
that is a complete potential guess, but I swear I saw something like that. Like he's moved to guard and been traded.
What a fluky move.
Why would you say that, Slew?
Why would I say they've upgraded their offensive line. They got Brian Bulaga from the Packers, 3 years, 30 mil. Yeah, exactly. He's been a perennial Pro Bowler, and they got rid of Russell Okung, who has been a good player for them, but he's been injury prone, and they traded him for Trey Turner from the Panthers, who he's had 6 years in the league. 2014, all right league, but the last 5 years he's been a Pro Bowler. So excellent. I mean, you can't really argue with that one. Again, the move you mentioned earlier, Joe, Chris Harris from Denver, which you pointed out liking. They signed Austin Eckler, who was really effective for them last year. They didn't get tied into bringing Melvin Gordon in on a big money contract. I like that move. And the other one, if they can get a quarterback high in the draft, or maybe Cam Newton, then that's a really good roster. And the thing is with the Chargers, though, is that they always look good at this time of year.
Yeah, and then all their legs fall off in training camp.
But also, what could be good for the Chargers and no other team is the current situation, because they don't have any fans that go to their games anyway, so empty stadiums probably won't affect them as much.
Wow, absolutely. You spent a solid 2 minutes talking up the Chargers and then just smacked them back down with a massive bar. Harsh.
Hey, it might be a benefit.
They've been training for this day for 2 years.
I thought you were going to go down the angle of if training camps are cancelled then they can't possibly get their players injured again, but wow, just going to hit them straight at the fans.
Well, we could go with that one as well.
No, they'd still manage to. Joey Bosa will still rip his elbow or something. Please don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Please God don't.
Please no. Please.
I just want a one healthy Chargers year so we can actually see for once what everyone keeps talking about.
In it, you feel like it's been building for the last 4 seasons.
It's been building.
How bad would you feel for Philip Rivers though?
Yeah, if they have one really healthy year, everyone just does absolute bits and they win the Super Bowl.
Tough break, old man.
Cam Newton dives over a fumble, picks it up, runs it 90 yards for a touchdown.
Super Cam. Vintage Super Cam. I feel like that needs to happen as well. I feel like Cam Newton on a short-term deal to the Chargers makes way too much sense for it not to have already happened.
I don't get why it hasn't. At the time of the recording, it hasn't. I've got a feeling like that might be a thing that happens.
I think the argument you could make is until... Yes, he's had his doctor sign off on it, but if you're looking at Cam Newton and the injury history he has had, would you not want your own guys to sign off on that?
True, but then also, I feel like you could get him on a a low enough contract that it's worth taking the punt, even if you're not 100% sure. You can be 80% sure and be like, well, even if he is a little bit buggered, then it is
Get
what
him
it
on
is.
1 year.
And you do with Tyrod Taylor as a backup.
He's got a Super Bowl
there
win,
was
by the
there was
way.
a video with them training together. I don't like. It just seems like by all checks and balances, he is going to the Chargers.
There was also a video of Antonio Brown working out with Lamar Jackson and his cousin Hollywood.
Shut up!
But
Shut up!
I saw that.
That's just because they're related. It's
Hey,
just
man.
nothing else other than that.
You
They're
better
just
hope that he doesn't talk to
friendly,
Lamar and put bad
relative.
ideas in his head.
No, he would never do that. He's got Hollywood. Okay, fair enough. But so, other than the Chargers, Matt, what teams do you think had a good free agency?
I actually really liked what the Bills did, and it really hurts me to say that because I loathe the Bills entirely.
Do you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Have they actually been good enough in your lifetime for you to build up a hatred for them?
Yeah, but you've got to have
Or
a hatred
because
for
you've
the
both
teams in
been
your
so
conference.
naff?
Yeah, I don't, because one of our teams is the Bengals and the other one is the Browns. So
I also really dislike the Bills logo. I think it looks absolutely shit. Like, it's
That's
by
such a-
far. This is a complete tangent, but I think the
Bills
logo is
or
by
the Rams
far
or the
worst.
Rams' new logo.
Oh, the Rams' new logo is way better than the Bills' current logo. The
Oh,
Bills'
shut
current
up.
logo
Oh,
is
that's an
trash.
outrageous claim.
That is
So
not true
trash.
at all.
It's just a chubby fucking bison thing. It's crap.
It's a
But
buffalo.
anyway, I think the Diggs move instantly gives Josh Allen a fantastic weapon. I think re-signing Poyer to quite a modest contract for Poyer being the player that he is was a great move. Getting AJ Klein was really good as well. So I think the Bills had an all-round pretty solid off-season so far with the moves they've made. I was pretty impressed.
Decent. And I was gonna say if I mean I can save it for later, but screw it. If you're gonna look at some way to get value out of a trade, Minnesota, who are my pick for the best free agency team. Look at what you did with Stephon Diggs. You got a really good deal, a bunch of picks, bunch of value. Let me just. It was a first, a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth for Stephon Diggs. Which I think that's what you should get if you're trading away your
Some
your
of those
best
are next year, right? Though.
receiver. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they're still what? Yeah. I mean, the next 2 years are going to be pretty good drafts, especially receiver wise as well. Yeah, and I just thought like Diggs never really seemed like a team player on Zimmer's team. Remember in that playoff game,
you
when
firing
he was
shots
like,
at his character, Joe.
yeah, but remember we all watched was the Saints playoff game where he wasn't getting enough receptions and starts like pulling
Having
an
a stroke.
absolute tantrum on the side.
You mean, and
we
then
were all
they
saying
threw the
it, we
ball
were
to him and he
watching
won the
together
league,
being
won
like,
the game.
yeah. Then they were leading. They were leading at the time.
Wait, are you talking about this year or
This-
the Minnesota
Well,
Miracle?
this year and generally, well, yeah, the Minnesota Miracle is the Minnesota Miracle, but I'm just talking about this year and in general.
Oh, okay.
He's had spots where he's looked like not the biggest team player. And
Yeah, I mean, actually,
filling
now
in
you
that
said
sort
that,
of-
Joe, thinking back, I can see where you're coming from with Diggs a little bit. He
Yeah,
seems a
like,
bit-
there
There are,
are
a
bit
lot of, there are a lot of there are a lot of weapons in that Bills offense as well. You got Brown, you got Cole Beasley,
I think
you
weapons
got
quite.
Devin Singletary as well.
I
If
think-
those are going, yeah, but they're all players that are going to get at least 50, 60 targets as they have done in their
Yeah.
career. How
I
many?
wouldn't-
yeah.
When in the Vikings, it was just Thielen, Diggs. Really, occasionally Cook's got a catch, but a lot of the time it's just one of those two, and he was still annoyed that he wasn't the number one receiver. Maybe he'll be the number one receiver here, which will be the difference, but we'll see.
I would say so. I think he will be. I think it's quite generous to call Cole Beasley a weapon of any sort, to be honest. I think John Brown looked okay at times. I don't
John
think he's
Brown's really good.
fantastic.
John Brown had a really good year.
Yeah. He was really good all year, and he was good the year before for the Ravens as well.
You just love him because he's an ex-Raven.
No, but he was genuinely. Didn't he have like 1,400 yards or something crazy?
I do not believe
Crazy.
so.
I don't. He probably not 1,400. That was probably ridiculous.
It's
But
just you've absolutely pulled that out of your ass, then, haven't you?
Yeah.
what? How
Bloody
much
hell,
was
Joe.
it? Look it up, Slew. While we're speaking, do something active with your life. But I thought he had a very good year in general.
He didn't impress me too much, to be honest.
But he's got a boy who just overthrows him every time, and he still manages to catch most of them.
Well, his whole thing is that he's rapid in it. That's his job.
He's rapid in it.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to know how many yards he had?
Yeah.
I would love to.
1,060. with 6 touchdowns, which is a pretty good year.
It's pretty good.
It's a solid year, to be fair. Yeah, I mean,
over 1,000 yards receiving.
I mean, but I don't think anyone's saying that John Brown is in the same ballpark as Stephon Diggs as a weapon. Correct?
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's fair enough. No one was trying to make that
but
point.
He was good. It's just that you mentioned Cole Beasley before John Brown.
Yeah, because Cole Beasley's not a weapon. Cole Beasley's vanilla.
He's an absolute weapon.
He's a beige.
Yeah, but he's
wide
got
receiver.
a pretty decent rap album, to be fair.
Right,
Anyway, onto what I was saying. The Vikings picking up Michael Pierce, which was a great replacement for Linval Joseph, and getting that deal out of Diggs to sort them out for the future. And they basically just taken a step to realise their identity. We're a running team. We don't need this sort of diva going around here. And
yeah, true.
Just trade away, get some great value out of it.
I'd like to see what they make out of their trade picks before saying that they're in a really good position, because they did also lose their top 2 corners this year as well.
Yeah, but one of them, Xavier Rhodes, was not a top corner for them last year. He was.
No, but he was their top. They were their top 2 in their depth chart. So you do still have to replace them.
True, but it's a good year for corners as well this year.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I suppose you can get a receiver to take Diggs' role. You got Thielen still. You got the guy that was, what's the rookie tight end called? Was Irv Smith, that was good for them last year towards the end of the season. Yeah, they're in a pretty good position if they can take that next step. That was why I didn't put the Eagles there, because I like the 2 moves they have made, but they still haven't done anything at wide receiver, which was the biggest issue the whole of last year.
Yeah,
that's true.
Until you address your biggest need, I don't feel you can say you've had a good free agency.
You've got a few stone hands, don't you?
Yeah, you got rid of Aguilar.
Well, they can either catch or they can run quickly. We don't really have anyone that can do both,
and that is an issue.
That is an issue. All right, and so the final trade that we've been waiting to go on, Joe.
Oh, I was gonna just mention one other team before we got into the final thing, but I was just gonna say the Browns, like I mentioned earlier.
Browns did well.
Yeah, they did well. They managed not to take a step back despite losing their GM this year. And
they did well.
Yeah, they got a great playmaker in Austin Hooper, top 3 target for that team, like I mentioned. And the O-line was their biggest issue last year, and they really addressed that with Jack Conklin. At least getting away there. They still need to invest more in draft picks and capital that way, but I think their offense looks like it should be good. I don't know if it will be.
Looked like it should have been good last year.
Yeah, I know. Well, then it did have a trash O-line. This O-line got a bit better this year.
All right, and so our favourite personality in the league got a bit more power after a failed playoff run again, and he decided to throw away his best player for scraps. Bill O'Brien. Joe, thoughts?
I think the man should be fired and burnt alive
bad man.
Stake.
You know what? I'd agree with the firing. The burning at the stake seems a tad unnecessary.
I don't know, man.
He should have been fired after the playoff game that they blew a huge lead against the Chiefs.
Yeah, but
that's when he should have been fired. And then what do? They make him sole GM after some weird little 4-man GM thing where he was really the little puppet master.
Give this man all the power.
It's just
doesn't make
ridiculous.
sense.
I think he's just an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. There's not really like a professional way to say this, but he just, and you're just looking
just
at
sucks.
He just every decision he makes is just the worst thing ever. There's a person at my work who's much like this as well. He will give you very, very detailed advice on to the worst way you could possibly handle anything, acting as if it's the best thing. And that reminds me a lot of Bill O'Brien. And I often think of
Joe, you got a name for that person?
And an address and a home contact number.
I'm just going to leave that out of there. Aha! That's a little reference for you. Nice. Easter egg.
It doesn't work if you then draw attention to it. That's why they won't pick up on that one.
Joe.
Anyway, yeah. So Bill O'Brien is a lemon man. He's very sour boy, and he annoys me. And he probably pisses off Houston fans more than
could you
natural
imagine?
disasters.
But
Wow.
regarding the Hopkins trade as well, his excuse was, he's on a 3-year deal and he wanted paying. But you don't have to pay him.
Yeah,
trade him.
exactly.
You can just be like, no, you're under contract.
Does
Be
he
here
know how
for the
years
championship.
work?
I don't think he does.
Yeah, it was just
I
it
don't
was
know. It's
just
like
horrible.
he was trying to gain too much power too quickly. It's like, right, you've questioned me, you're out.
Yeah,
He's a freaking dictator, mate.
the thing, yeah, and that kind of ties into what I hate most about Bill O'Brien is everything he does is so brash and just so like it feels like
Emotional.
he makes decisions. Yeah, it feels like he makes decisions based on exactly how he's feeling at that moment, and like I felt that way with the Tunsil trade, the Tunsil and Stills trade. That this Hopkins debacle feels exactly the same as well. He just seems to just make off the cuff massive decisions that franchise altering decisions. And they're wrong. Like there's no one on the planet that thinks that the Hopkins trade worked for Houston in a meaningful way.
Except Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if it is based on this whole power struggle he wanted paying or whatever, I've never heard a bad story about DeAndre Hopkins.
No, never.
Ever.
Do you remember? Do you hear that
As
thing
a
that was going
personality issue or
around?
anything like that? The
Did
baby
you hear
mama
that thing? Did you hear that thing that was going around between Bill? What Michael Irvin said about what DeAndre Hopkins had told him, where DeAndre Hopkins
That his
apparently
baby
was getting
mamas
into
were around the.
yeah, his baby mamas. That Bill O'Brien was complaining that DeAndre's baby mamas were on the field during training, and he reminded him of Aaron Hernandez and
Bloody
DeAndre
hell.
Hopkins.
When you say on the
like,
field, you
What?
mean like watching the game, not lining up at corner or something like that.
Do you imagine?
imagine.
Wow.
Mama Hopkins. She's picked him off. She's picked DeAndre off.
That would be especially impressive because I'm fairly certain DeAndre Hopkins' mum is blind and watches from the stands, and they do. There's a whole emotional thing about it.
I meant his baby mama.
Yeah.
Okay.
God.
I was gonna say. But,
Jesus Christ. You had to bring it down, didn't you? God.
but
But
yeah.
anyway, Aaron Hernandez. So, as I was saying, yeah, but to compare him to that seems pretty messed up.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Just anyway, even if he has been causing frictions, there's no reason to say that about someone that is a mass murderer,
Exactly.
because that's not the same thing.
Exactly. Oh, you know, who you really remind me of Charles Manson. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just ridiculous. He's a ridiculous man, and surely I can't see any way that. I mean, I guess I can.
Because they'll make the playoffs again
He
in the
can.
AFC South.
Yeah.
They'll lose a playoff
that's-
game, and
yeah.
they'll be like,
That's
"Oh,
exactly
he made
how
the playoffs.
I
Let's
see
keep
it
him around."
That's what I mean. I was going to
That's
say
the
I
exact route.
can't see any way that he's still the Houston oligarch by
He's-
the end of next season, but he will
But he
be
will
because
Dictators always get what they
Houston
want, mate.
oligarchs.
yeah, I think,
Putin's been in power for 30 years.
wow, we're just adding to the list of figures that we're calling out on our podcast. We can put Putin on the list now. Great, Joe. Our Russian listening numbers have gone right down.
Oh, sorry.
All through the
yeah.
roof because we can
Our
hashtag it
biggest
and then get
audience.
involved.
The Drop Back
I
podcast
forgot-
available in
I-
every country apart from Russia.
Banned in Russia. That would probably give us more exposure, to be fair.
Yeah.
Available everywhere. Banned in Russia.
Nice.
Cool.
People be like, how have they managed to get banned from Russia? Oh no.
Oh my god! You know what? I think that's a good place to leave it because it's going to go downhill from here because Joe's got carried away.
Joe's
So,
gonna be digging
that's
the
the
end
end
of
of our
that
show.
Shut up.
Thank you for the first 99% of today's podcast, Joe.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to ruin it at the end. I do have one thing to mention.
Go on then.
Is it PG-ish?
It is PG. It's just a bit of news that we heard. So, obviously, with amidst everything going on at the moment, I'm sure I don't need to mention what's going on, but we all know. So, Donald Trump had
So
said
that's where you draw the line. Just out of curiosity, that is where you draw the line.
yes, I draw the line right there, right in the sand. Yeah, ever since the event, all major sports have been cancelled. So, Donald Trump has mentioned to everyone that football should be back in time for August and September, which obviously gives some issues potentially with training camps and how they're going to organise that. So I don't know if they'll need to still delay it for a few months or whatever the best way of doing that is. Everyone just maybe starts a bit under-prepared.
To be honest, I just don't think it's feasible at all. I don't think there's any way that football starts in August or September, and unless something changed. We'll wake up tomorrow and the situation's completely different. You know, the amount.
Well, the original diagnosis from Trump was that it was going to be over by Easter weekend, which is this coming weekend.
Yes,
so
that's what I
maybe
was going to
soon,
mention.
lads.
He
I'm
did
so
predict it
excited
would all
for
be
next
over
weekend, guys. It's
by
gonna be great.
Easter. It's all going to be fine. Life will be back to normal. God.
Oh, you've brought it round to a lovely positive note to end it on, Joe. Kudos to that. Well done, you.
I was saying football will be back, but apparently not, so don't worry.
And he brought it back down again. Right, so that is the end of our roller coaster of an ending. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you check out our website, thedropback.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram @thedropback, on Facebook @thedropbackuk. I've been Sam.
I've been Joe.
And I've been Matt.
And until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Peace.
The Drop Back with Sam Lewis, Matt Burns Peak, and Joe Costanzo.